chapter number 8, sound. Today we discuss the echo. An echo is the repetition of the original sound. Repetition of original sound because of reflection, from some rigid surface at the distance from the source of sound, that is called echo. Echo is nothing but the repetition of original sound because of reflection of that sound from some rigid surface at the distance from the source of sound. पण मराठीत त्याला प्रतिध्वनी असे म्हणतो. प्रतिध्वनी म्हणजे तरी काय की जो आपला ओरिजिनल साऊंड आहे तो ओरिजिनल साऊंड ज्यावेळेस एखाद्या रिजिड मीडियमवर सॉलिड मीडियमवर जर इन्सिडेंट झाला तर त्या ठिकाणी रिफ्लेक्शन होतं आणि आपलाच आवाज परत आपल्याला ऐकू येणं किंवा दिस इज कॉल्ड द इको. जर आपण डोंगरी भागात गेलो त्या ठिकाणी टेकडी आहे, दरी आहे, अशा ठिकाणी गेलो आणि तिथं जर आपण जोराने आवाज केला इन हिली एरिया वी shouted, then we likely heard the echo. तर त्या ठिकाणी आपल्याला प्रतिध्वनी ऐकायला मिळतो. It is observed that if the temperature of given surrounding is about 22 degrees Celsius, or it is found that the temperature of given medium is 22 degrees Celsius, then the velocity or speed of sound is 344 meter per second. बरेच एक्सपेरिमेंट केल्यानंतर असं आढळून आलं की जर माध्यमाचं ज्या माध्यमामधून साऊंड येऊन जात असेल त्याचं टेम्परेचर 22 डिग्री सेल्सिअस असेल तर साऊंडचा वेग हा 344 मीटर पर सेकंड असतो. अँड ऑल्सो वी ऑब्झर्व और वी हर्ड द साऊंड इज और in human our brain retain the sound 0.1 second. आपल्याला कुठल्याही आवाजाची जाणीव ही 0.1 सेकंदामध्ये होते. Then the sound produced by source must be greater than this time duration must be greater than 0.1 second. This is the time. Now we find out the relation, that is we know the relation velocity is equal to distance upon time. Now we calculate the distance between source and reflected surface. Therefore, this gives distance is equal to speed or velocity into time. This is equal to distance is, speed is 344 meter per second into time 0.1 second, we get 34.4 meter. This is the total distance covered by the sound from source to reflected surface and reflected surface to source. Now we calculate the actual distance between the source of sound and that reflected medium, that is the echo produced, or we heard echo from a distance. We heard echo at distance is equal to 34.4 upon 2, which is equal to 70.2. If the distance between source of sound and the reflected solid surface is 17.2 meter, then we heard the echo, or we observe the phenomena of echo. जर आपल्याला प्रतिध्वनी ऐकायचा असेल तर साऊंडचा सोर्स आणि ज्या ठिकाणी साऊंड रिफ्लेक्ट होऊन परत मागे येणार आहे त्या दोघांच्या मधलं अंतर जर 17.2 मीटर असेल तर त्या ठिकाणी we observe the phenomena of echo. This is about the echo, but in previous lecture we discussed the velocity of sound is depends upon temperature. Hence, the temperature changes in the given medium, that distance is also changed. That means the distance, that is echo, formed at distance, and that distance is depends upon temperature, because the temperature is depends upon speed or velocity of sound in air. Now also we discuss the some properties of sound or characteristics of sound. Some properties of sound, it is also called properties of sound or characteristics of sound or qualities of sound. Properties of sound, it is also called characteristics of sound, and this can be properties of sound, characteristics of sound, and it is also called qualities of sound. What is the quality or what is the characteristics or of sound produced in the given medium? The first characteristics or first quality of sound is called pitch. Pitch is the one of most important characteristics of the sound. This pitch or pitch is accept to sharpness, or shrillness of the given sound. The speech is the characteristics to identify the sharpness and shrillness of the given sound, and that sound is coming from source. This pitch is nothing but, we know the sound had some frequency, and if we increase If we increases the frequency of sound, the speech is increases. We say that the high speech, then that is frequency is also high. The high pitch frequency is high. The sound, the speech, the characteristic speech is directly proportional to frequency of sound. If the frequency of sound is increases, the pitch is increases. The frequency of sound decreases, the pitch is decreases. That means we say that the speech is high or high speech, the frequency of that sound is also high. If the frequency is high, the speech is high, we say that the sharpness of sound is better, or sound has a sharp or sharper sound. This is called. For example, the first example, the sound of guitar or tone of guitar is sharp than the bass guitar. The sound of bass guitar. This is the first example. Second example, the sound of tabla is sharper than, or the sound of tabla is sharp than the sound of dagga. Or third example, this is very common example or in general example, the female sound is sharp than male sound. Female sound is sharp than male sound. That means the female sound have high pitch, and male sound have low pitch. जो फिमेलचा आवाज असतो, फिमेलचा आवाज आहे त्याचा स्पीच जास्त असतो, त्या आवाजाची फ्रिक्वेन्सी जास्त असते. मेलचा जो साऊंड असतो त्याची फ्रिक्वेन्सी कमी असते, त्याचा स्पीच कमी असतो. म्हणून फिमेलचा आवाज हा मेलच्या आवाजापेक्षा जास्त शार्प असतो. दिस इज द फर्स्ट कॅरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ quality of sound, that is speech. In short, this characteristic speech depends upon frequency. If frequency increases, the speech is increased, and if speech increases, we say that the sound quality is also increases, and that is called sharpness and shrillness of sound. Now we discuss the second quality or second characteristics of sound is the timbre. Timbre, or it is also called sound quality. Sound quality or timbre. This is the second characteristics of sound or quality of sound, and this timbre or quality, for example, आपण एक उदाहरण घेऊया की आपण आता सध्या आपल्याकडे सेलफोन आहे किंवा याच्यापूर्वी आपल्याकडे लँडलाईन फोन असायचे. आपण जर एखाद्याला फोन केला, त्यांनी समोरून आपल्याला नाव सांगितलं नाही तरी त्याच्या आवाजावरून आपण ओळखू शकतो तो कोण बोलतोय. जर तो आपल्या फॅमिली सर्कलमधला असेल तर आपण त्याचा आवाज ओळखू शकतो आणि कोण आहे ते सांगू शकतो. किंवा अननोन पर्सन असेल तर आपण हे समजू शकतो की आपल्या ओळखीचं नाही आहे, हा कुठला तरी वेगळ्या व्यक्तीचा आवाज आहे. म्हणजे हे जे आपल्याला नॉलेज होतं, वी आयडेंटिफाय द डिफरंट साऊंड फ्रॉम द डिफरंट सोर्स. वी analyze or we understand the sound or different sound from different source, and that concept is called timbre or quality of sound. If we heard the different sound and we identify them, that concept is called quality of sound or timbre of sound. For example, we play or we heard a song from different instrument. समजा आपण एखादं गाणं ऐकतो, ते गाणं समजा फ्लूट वाजवून आपण ऐकलं, तेच गाणं तबल्यामधून आपण ऐकलं, तेच गाणं हार्मोनियममधून आपण ऐकलं, तेच गाणं आपण व्हायलिनच्या आधारे ऐकलं, तेच गाणं आपण गिटार वाजवून, म्हणजे एकच गाणं पण त्याला जे आपण म्हणतो संगीत देताना वेगवेगळे म्युझिकल इन्स्ट्रुमेंट वापरलं तरी आपण त्या गाण्याबरोबर ते इन्स्ट्रुमेंट कुठलं आहे, ते सितार आहे का, गिटार आहे, व्हायलिन आहे का, तबला आहे, हे आपण आयडेंटिफाय करू शकतो. दिस इज कॉल्ड द timbre or quality of sound. Then we heard the different sound note from different instrument. Such concept is nothing but timbre or quality of sound. Now the last characteristics of sound or property of sound is the loudness. Loudness. We know that in general, the intensity of sound, intensity is a measurable quantity, and this intensity of wave or intensity of sound is directly proportional to square of amplitude of the given wave or sound. The intensity is a measurable quantity. The intensity is measured watt per meter square. And this intensity of wave or intensity of sound is directly proportional to square of amplitude of the wave. That is, this intensity depends upon amplitude. Now, if we assume the I is the intensity of sound, and this intensity of sound is directly proportional to, suppose capital A is the amplitude, the I is directly proportional to A square. If the intensity, firstly, if amplitude increases, then intensity increases, because these are directly proportional to each other. And if intensity of sound is increases, we say that the loudness, this is called, we increase the loudness of sound. Listener heard the sound whose intensity is high, we say that this is the loudness concept. The intensity of wave is proportional to square of amplitude, and human perception of intensity of sound is a loudness. If intensity is more, the loudness of sound is also more. म्हणजे जर आपल्याला साऊंडचा लाउडनेस म्हणजे थोडासा मोठा आवाज ऐकायचा असेल तर त्याची इंटेन्सिटी जास्त पाहिजे, आणि इंटेन्सिटी जास्त पाहिजे असेल तर ती जी वेव्ह आहे, साऊंड आहे, त्याचं ॲम्प्लिट्यूड आपल्याला वाढवावं लागतं. बिकॉज This intensity is directly proportional to square of amplitude, and this intensity depends upon loudness. If we increase the intensity of sound, we heard the loudness of sound. म्हणजे आपल्याला जर मोठा आवाज ऐकायचा असेल तर साऊंडची इंटेन्सिटी वाढवावी लागते, आणि साऊंडची इंटेन्सिटी वाढवायची असेल तर आपल्याला त्याचं एम्प्लिट्यूड वाढवावं लागतं. एम्प्लिट्यूड मीन्स द मॅक्सिमम डिस्प्लेसमेंट फ्रॉम मेन पोझिशन. एम्प्लिट्यूड वाढलं तर इंटेन्सिटी वाढेल, इंटेन्सिटी वाढेल तर आपल्याला त्या जो साऊंड असेल सोर्सचा त्याचा आपल्याला मोठा आवाज ऐकायला मिळतो, आणि दॅट प्रॉपर्टी इज कॉल्ड लाऊडनेस. द लाऊडनेस ऑफ इंटेन्सिटी or for healthy person or healthy human ear, the least audible intensity is suppose I0, and this is 10 raised to minus 12 watt per meter square. म्हणजे जो निरोगी व्यक्ती असेल त्याची इंटेन्सिटी ऐकण्याची क्षमता किती असते? 10 raised to minus 12. And loudness of sound of intensity, suppose I, is measured in unit. That unit is called bell, B-E-L, bell. This is the unit of loudness of sound of intensity I is measured in bell. This is about the properties of sound, characteristics of sound, or qualities of sound. There are three types of characteristics. First, speech of sound. The speech of sound depends upon frequency of sound. If frequency increases, speech is increases. Frequency decreases, speech is also decreases. Second property is timbre or quality of sound. The quality of sound is nothing but if we listen or we heard the different types of sound from the different source, and we identify them, who is speaking or who is shouting or which instrument is source of sound, we identify them, and such property is called quality or timbre of sound. And third is the loudness. Loudness is depends upon intensity, and intensity is depends upon amplitude. If amplitude increases, the intensity is increases, and intensity increases, the loudness of sound is also